can you guys talk about, like, I mean, obviously it's D&D, but do you guys have a relationship which was of the Coast or Dungeons and Dragons label company in general? Do they allow you to use the systems, but the book's your own? Like, how does all that stuff work?
Yeah, so the relationship we have with D&D is I used to be the community manager of D&D, and I used to do a lot of live streams on them. They're very good at rewarding their community for doing stuff. So say you want to put something on DM's Guild, you could do that. But as long as you're using the OGL, you can use the rule set and a few things. Like
that's an open gaming license.
Yeah, like they've got some magic you can use, some races and classes you can use publicly, but what they're also really good at is saying, you know, you're the game master, why don't you tell us what your subclass looks like, what your magic item looks like. And it has kind of forced the entire community, and not forced, it's been an honor to be able to say, thank you, Dungeons and Dragons, this is what we've done. And that's they're really good at celebrating that.
Yeah, I've been incredibly impressed, honestly, because there are a lot of other kind of game companies that really just kind of like hoard their toys, basically, and like, no, you cannot create in our environment. And they've really encouraged independent studios like ours to say, like, hey, here are some words that you can't use because those are copyrighted. Those are really just specific. And if you want to, then you have to be a licensed partner, and they have an avenue for that too. But if you want to be completely independent like we are, this is the OGL. This is what you can do. You can still use 5th edition. And honestly, just create and have fun and make money, make a livable wage doing it, and just get people excited about, about your content. And so, Kickstarter is a great place to do that, where they've been able to democratize, publishing really. And we get to go to our fans and followers and say, hey, this is our new project. What do you think? And people get really excited about it. And I think ultimately for Dungeons and Dragons and for Wizards of the Coast, it's been a really smart business move for them, because it brings in so many other people into 5th edition that wouldn't necessarily be able to be there, because you have so many more creators making games in that space.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to go down the business side too much of it, but like, are you able to keep everything you make off the book, yourself? Do you have to give revenue shares to Wizards of the Coast or D&D?
No, it's a great question, and a lot of people aren't super familiar. For us, it's 100% ours, and so everything that we make is ours, so long as we follow the OGL, the Open Gaming License.
Yeah, you play by the rules, it works out. Now Kickstarter, and doing something on Kickstarter, that's a business thing, right? So Kickstarter takes a chunk, you got to pay everybody. So what people make, that visual thing that you see, the numbers that pop up, that is not the take home, unfortunately, but it is a resource that is incredible.
Yeah.
Being able to have that marketplace for everyone to go to get your books, put on all the add-ons and get all the dice and the wormwood trays and the Sirenscape. It's actually pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like a really interesting process. It's almost like shareware in video games, like, here, just make whatever you want, have fun with it, we don't care. And you can like release mods, charge for mods, do whatever for free, and it's all your own. Unlike other companies, Games Workshop, that try to copyright high elves. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like, we want to own the word high elf, and no one can. You're like, nah, come on. Like, come on.
Yeah,
there's a line.
Yeah, Tolkien's rolling in his grave when he was I totally feel you.
So, like, obviously we live in a digital age, but you guys are familiar with publishing books. What are some challenges in having a physical product, like a mini or a book, and getting that out into the world? That's got to have its own set of challenges.
Yeah, so delivery it's this whole other beast. Yeah, we have a logistics bard on our team. Her name is Sarah Erper, and she's fantastic. And we really try to actually meet our players kind of where they're at. So some people, they just want to stay digital. They just want either a PDF or they want to play on a virtual tabletop. So we partnered with Roll20, Fantasy Grounds, and
Foundry, VTT, Shard.
Yeah, and numerous others, to be able to have like purely online versions. And then for people that really love to have like actual collector's items, we have special editions of our books, limited editions in slipcases. So this is the Red Opera. This is our Warlock book.
We're collectors, so we like to make things that.
We're all collectors here. We're all we all got
So, beautiful things that, like I remember when I was in high school playing tabletop games, like I would throw this in my backpack and this would just be in my backpack like forever as I was running games and GMing for my friends. And so to have kind of these different tiers and different avenues where people can approach our content is fantastic, because we don't want to alienate anybody, because we understand that, a book like this that costs $100 for this beautiful slipcase, that's outside of a lot of people's price point, and we still want them to enjoy our content. So to have a reasonably priced digital version that they can go and pick up is fantastic too. And the same is the case with our minis. So these are our Red Opera minis. They come, they're 3D printed and they're full color. And we were able to partner with a really fantastic organization called Mixed Dimensions that allowed us to actually print these at half the cost of what you'd find for a lot of other people, and it has a higher detail. That's just leveraging new technology, and they have a patented program that it allows them to print things at really, really great costs. And there's a virtual version of that too on their app. So if people want to play on the virtual tabletops, they can do that as well.
Yeah, and it's really cool because we're not just here to make books. We want to make that, but the two of us are really into immersive storytelling, like really diving in. So making products that are usable, right? Yes, you can put that on your shelf, but also the slipcase for Sirens is going to have the DM screen in it. So you could actually have your book, your DM screen in a slipcase. You put that in your bag.
Yep. Oh no, DM screens. I collect those. I have a whole
I know.
full of them, 'cause I'm like, I need that. I just like that art. I need it. And even though you never use them, you're just like,
oh wait, I think my favorite one from D&D is here. This is Hydro 74.
Oh, is that the Rick and Morty one?
No, the Rick and Morty one has the best interior.
That's a fun one too.
But this one is my favorite. I too collect.
Yeah.
But Rick and Morty is pretty great. So I don't know if you've seen
this is a great one with foil on it.
And man, I want to go to there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's only like $400.
Yeah.
Only.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's bragging rights. You get the table, you're like, yeah, it's a high end.
Totally.
It's sexy. So, because we're collectors, and yes, I'm a dungeon master for life. We're designing the it's the game master screen, because
that's one of the OG.
One of the words you talked about were
yes,
game master screen. Got it.
Yeah. So the game master screen has stuff for specifically Salvata, and as a game master, I was showing him my old game master screens and I'm like, this is funny because here's something that should give me all the information I need, and it's just post-it notes on the inside of what I really wanted it to say.
Yeah.
So as a game master who's really into easy accessibility of information, we're actually being able to design it to have what a game master would need on this side for things that are reoccurring.
Yeah.
If they're traveling, what's the cost of travel? Or if they're drinking, what's the cost of that drink?
Yeah. And drink specific to the locations,
to the districts.
That they're at.
Exactly. And then, so we've got that in the slipcase and the book. So you can protect the book and the game master screen, because a lot of mine, the corners are busted because I use it a lot,
And as collectors, again, we love
paper.
Foil, and we have special paper, and we're going to be putting that on the actual game master screen too. And so we're going to have a fully foiled game master screen. So when you sit down, it's gonna be really impressive.
Yeah, but it's also cool. So we are coming out of quarantine, and people are starting to play right now in IRL. So you've got it, the whole purpose of a game master screen is to place your players into that area. So by looking up at you, game master, they're now seeing the city of Salvata. They're seeing the characters. They're seeing all the details that we put into the coins and everything. We designed so here's the Red Opera campaign coin. That's the city, the icon for the city. But for Sirens, we actually designed it so that it's your bardic inspiration coin. So there's a small well that represents, the waterfall, the reverse waterfall oasis. But you can actually put your dice in there and then slide it over to the other players.
For bardic inspiration, so they can remember that they actually have a die for bardic inspiration.
Yeah. Or we've got our minis. So we partnered with Wormwood, and the Wormwood has slots for your minis and your dice.
Yeah,
and
I have some of their products. Yeah, they're a really good company. Yeah.
We love them.
Oh, I love them. So they actually printed the city on leather on the inside of I don't have my phone, otherwise I'd show you. So the entire city is in this faux leather. So you could take your dice and roll into the city, because how cool is that?
Yeah.
And then even further, like we're partnered with Level Up Dice, and we created these dice. You know, I collect dice. I've got this many dice. I got a bowl, it's this big, and it's full of dice. But I'm like, what don't I have? I don't have a set of Bard shaped dice. So we've got a loot D4. We've got a stack of askew books that are a D6. We have a mic. So it's a little mic, and it's a 20-sided mic for your mic drop D20.
Yeah, mic drop D20.
Crit. And so everything fits and works with each other so that you can, and it's designed for players and game masters to be able to take your thing to your friend's house, or you could just line it up and have it as collector shelf, you know.
So
we're very proud of it. I'm really proud of this.
You should be.
You guys should be. I mean, it's a very big world. It's very hard to get noticed and get done. And you guys are doing, like, you're living the dream, right? It's like fun, you know. It's great to do this for a living. I'm assuming you guys do this full time.
Full time.
Yeah, full time.
Yeah, triple full time.
Like, well, it's funny. So we're like making stuff, and we're listening to the soundtrack that he put into his book. And so I'm just gonna brag because I love when. So I thought it was genius, because I work with Sirenscape a lot, just all the time. But for the books, he has QR codes at each chapter. So you don't even need to go and search your music. You just scan the QR code and the music pops up. Yeah. And so we're doing that for Sirens as well, and being able to have the Sirens soundscape, the orchestral soundtrack.
So the entire campaign has its own movie soundtrack, basically, and each song is
immersion.
Immersion storytelling. What nonsense is this? So let's talk about, like, obviously tabletop, or just writing and novelization in general. There's multiple different genres, but fantasy, science fiction, and like realistic. Is it easier to write for any of those specific genres? I mean, do you guys have a preference of your favorite one you like to write about, and why?
Fantasy or hardcore sci-fi. Because that's kind of fantasy in its own right.
Yeah.
Yes, like with aliens and superheroes.
I like them both. So I have a high fantasy novel series. The first book's called Rune of the Apprentice, and then I also have a graphic novel series that I co-wrote with, he's the lead. As a graphic novel, it's co-authored with David Granjo as the lead artist, and he's the lead artist on all of our projects. And that's near future sci-fi. And so for me, it's like there are so many different ways of telling stories. It's hard to just kind of like limit yourself to one avenue. And so it's fun to be able to kind of play in all the different foundations. Mm-hmm. So we have kind of IP all over the place.
I just like to, whatever it is, I want it to push reality. You know, if there's a little magic, I want more. If there's a little sci-fi, I want more. You know, the character in my graphic novel, she has this railgun tech, but then it gets embedded in her body, and she can do railgun tech on it, like with her, you know, energy. So that's the kind of stuff that we really enjoy. So that's what we put into Salvata, so that everyone can experience that. You know, D&D has a Forgotten Realms. There's pretty good magic there. You have to get really high level to do a lot of cool stuff. But then Eberron, I don't know if you know Eberron, but it's Arcana Punk. So it's just low, wide magic. There's just, you know, instead of like torch lights, you've got magic lights. Everything's infused. You got lightning rail trains. You've got airships all run by elementals. That's the kind of world that I want to live in, or at least write about.
You know, it's funny. I never get to that level because my characters always die.
I know.
I like to have fun, you know, like I'm not gonna like if there's a button in the middle of the room and there's no doors, I'm gonna press it. I'm not gonna debate 20 minutes to not press it. My character's gonna press it, you know, and then like resine's expensive, so the party doesn't want to do it because I usually get myself killed.
And that's why we wanted to start this campaign at like tier 2. So you can play this starting tier 2, tier 3, or tier 4. We actually have stats for whichever part you want to jump in at. Because, well, I don't like starting at level 1. I want to get into the guts. I want to start, you know, flinging magic around. And also, our campaign is over a 10-day. So you're only gaining about like 5 levels, or if you do everything, maybe 10 levels over 10 days is pretty impressive.
Absolutely. Yeah,
That sounds perfect for 10 sessions, because I mean, most of the time when you have a group, sometimes people can't make a session, or if you're lucky to get more than 10 sessions because life happens. So that sounds like a really good game length.
That's actually something that's really interesting. I've been talking a lot about that in my Game Master Tips show, is how to play for virtual gaming, right? And during quarantine is totally different. Pre-quarantine, you can sit at a table 4 to 6 hours, 8 hours with your friends. Now, people have to take a little more time. They only have about 2 hours. Commitment, I've watched games fall apart after 8 sessions or 2 months, usually about 2 months. You don't know what tomorrow's going to look like. You don't know how you're going to emotionally be. We've now been creating stories that are tighter, more like Netflix shows, so that there's more player agency, less wandering around, and more like, okay, this is the one day a week that I have emotionally to be around other people. So what do my games have to look like now?
Less bloat.
Yeah.
Can you guys, I mean, obviously you guys have experience, writing, world building, game design. Are you guys, can we ramp up? You guys gonna make a game? Are we gonna see a video game from you guys in the next couple years?
So we'd love to. We actually have a kind of a sector of our team working on a video game called Shadow of the Moon, and that's set within kind of our world. And we'd love to. What's really awesome for us is we as a team, we learn so much by working on these 5th edition products. When we bring a video game to the marketplace, and I'm a hardcore gamer, so I am like a really harsh judge of video games. I want to bring something that I feel incredibly proud of, that really pushes that AAA indie kind of line. And so it's, for us, I think there's a level of, we can rely on our storytellers. When we create a TTRPG campaign, we're really giving kind of the framework on how the game master can then tell the story. So we're providing tools for a game master. When we kind of look at our video game aspect, we are creating everything from in a 360-degree perspective, and there are no kind of blurry edges. Everything is precisely detailed down to story and dialogue and all the rest. And so for us, I think we're so critical of that, and I'm so critical as a creative director, that we're really excited about Shadow of the Moon, our video game, but it's going to be a couple more years until it's ready.
Yeah, and even further, Jamison and I are Renaissance artists. We do so many different things. It's like, I've got an idea. He's like, I got another idea. And I'm like, oh God, I got another idea. Yeah. And what's really cool is being able to see how people are using different platforms for gaming, and being able to be like, oh, isn't that interesting? This would be a really cool avenue to take Sirens in, mm-hmm. or even Rune. Like, what are the new ways of we just got Oculus a couple months ago.
The Quest 2.
Quest 2. And so it's like, what can we do with this? I've got the new iPad where you can do VR. Mm-hmm. What can we do with this? So being able to we're both really good at staying ahead at the forefront of technology and learning about new things that are coming out, and utilizing our peers and their expertise in order to kind of stay ahead and keep those creative ideas and avenues flowing. Just the idea that we have 5 different VTTs that are all we're going to have them on our Kickstarter as tiers. Mm-hmm. Like, that's pretty magical to me, right. Where, I got into Roll20, and I'm like, man, it'd be really cool if I could get like a D&D game on Roll20, and then trying to find people to build that for me, and like, oh, okay, well, now I have to learn this, and how do I put this together? We actually have teams working on this for us, converting our system, our game, into those avenues. So one, is really good at fog of war. The other one's good at environmental effects. And watching all of these things come to life, it's like, oh, honey, look at all these cool things that we can do. It's very exciting.
It's funny that no one's done that. I mean, there have been games that are tabletop games, stuff like that, but just putting on a VR headset and having maybe your city there and having moving miniatures around, and there's no game mechanics. It's just, you're just moving things around and rolling some dice and doing your, no one's done that yet. And I'm like, how has no one done this yet? Just an environmental way to play the game that increases it. You could have your music in there, you have a 3D visualization of the city that you can look it down upon, like all the map, because everything's everything's laid out already. You have the schematics, right? It's just the time and money to make it into 3D and having it work in a video game.
Yeah.
Totally, 100%. And a really cool thing, and I think one of the reasons that a lot of VTT platforms really enjoy working with us at Apotheosis Studios, how we actually approach TTRPG game design as though it were a video game. So we actually use 3D models and 3D assets for all of our character creation. And so they're not as polished as you'd find in a AAA game, but we can bring them that final 10% to kind of jump over the uncanny valley with Photoshop and a lot of kind of like just painting over that you see in a traditional game sense. But how we actually design our cities is we create it in 3D. So for Yonkath, for our Warlock book, The Red Opera, we created that entire city in 3D. You can walk around it. And for Sirens, Battle of the Bards in Selvata, we've created that entire city too.
I want to, can I show you? Is that cool?
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
So here's,
you'll see in our Kickstarter video, we actually have a full 3D version of the city, and like this is it. Like it is done in full 3D, and people will be able to see it on our Kickstarter page and in our on our Kickstarter video of the entire 3D city. And so to take it then that next step of bringing it into Oculus, it really actually isn't that hard. And so when we created our minis, to port them over into an actual 3D model, it wasn't as much work as for a lot of traditional TTRPG companies. They're just using more traditional art form. Even if it's digital, they're painting, but it's all two-dimensional when we do everything in 3D.
I know that time's the biggest factor when you have this stuff, but I'm just telling you, as a game journalist, I've never seen anyone do that yet. I would just love it. It doesn't even have to have any rules or mechanics, just the dice rolling and then just being able to look at the city and move your thing around in real time. That's it. You know what I mean? Everything else is done via voice chat, which is fantastic to see, because no one's done that yet.
Yeah,
you guys could be the first to do that.
I think you will be excited about some of our partners that have the exact same thought as you, and that technology I think is sooner than we in our kind of the cultural zeitgeist kind of think it is. But we are designing all of our cities in 3D, and
for a reason.